Hello everyone, welcome back to the English Echo. We're very happy you're here today. Today we're going to practice English together in a simple and relaxing way. I'm Sam.
And I'm Sophia.
We're happy you're here today.
Let's learn together.
So, I want to ask everyone listening a question today. Have you ever, found something old in your house and suddenly you are just totally transported back in time?
Oh, definitely. I mean, those unexpected discoveries are, well, they're always really powerful.
Right. Because I had this exact experience this morning. I was cleaning my closet, moving some heavy boxes around, and I found this small, dusty box hidden way in the back.
Oh, wow. What was inside?
Well, there were some concert tickets from like 10 years ago and some old postcards. But then I found a photograph of me when I was 10 years old.
Oh my gosh. Looking at old photos is, it's kind of like finding a key. It just unlocks these feelings and memories that you completely forgot were in your brain.
Exactly. I mean, it is just a physical object, but it opens up a whole story.
Right.
Because in this photo, my hair was just sticking straight up in the air.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was completely crazy haircut. I just started laughing out loud in my empty room. And I immediately wanted to call a friend and tell them the story behind that terrible haircut. But as I held my phone, I had a thought. To tell that story, I need to talk about the past.
And that is the bridge we all have to cross, right? I mean, if you want to share who you are or talk about your favorite memories or just tell your friends about a funny thing that happened yesterday, you need the tools to talk about the past.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Because without those tools, our stories just stay trapped inside our heads.
But here's the challenge that a lot of learners face. For anyone learning English, talking about the past can feel like hitting a heavy stone wall.
Oh, absolutely. The rules seem complicated. There are all these lists of words to memorize. So it often feels easier to just stay quiet instead of, trying to tell the story. I know many of you listening right now feel this exact frustration.
It is a very, very common feeling. I think grammar books often make it look like a math problem instead of, a natural human conversation.
Right, like a formula you have to solve.
Exactly. But we can look at it a different way today. Instead of memorizing boring rules, we can just look at how the language actually works in real life. We can look at why these rules exist in the first place.
I think that is the best way to do it. Because if we understand why the language works a certain way, it stops being a scary rule and just becomes a helpful tool.
Yes, exactly.
So if we want to break down this wall for you today, where's the most natural place to start building our stories?
Well, the most natural place to start is with actions that are completely finished. This is what we call the simple past tense.
Okay, the simple past.
Right. You use this when an action started in the past and it ended in the past. It is completely over. Basically, the door is closed on that action.
The door is closed. I like that image. So, if we go back to my childhood photo, when I was 10 years old, I played outside in the dirt all afternoon. The action of playing is 100% finished. The door is closed.
Yes, played is the perfect word there. You just take the base action, which is play, and you change the ending.
Right. And later that same day, I walked to the park with my dog. So again, the word is walk, but it changes to walked.
Exactly. Let's look at what is happening under the surface there, because you use the words played and walked, and this is honestly the most friendly and common rule in English history.
It really is.
For most verbs, to show that the action is finished, we just add 2 letters to the end, just an E and a D.
Yeah, it's a very friendly default setting. If you want to show that something is history, you just attach this little ED tag to the end of the word.
Yeah.
And it's very consistent.
It really is.
Like, for example, yesterday I wanted to do something nice for my family. So I cooked a big dinner.
Well, that sounds like a lot of work. What did you make?
Well, I roasted some chicken, and I roasted a lot of vegetables with garlic and olive oil. It took almost 2 hours.
That sounds delicious.
It was. But listen to the words I am using to describe the event. I cooked, I roasted. I am just taking the normal action and adding that ED tag to close the door.
Right. And because it is the default setting, you can use it with confidence for almost any new word in the English language. Even, modern technology words follow this rule.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, if you send a message on your phone, you say, I texted. If you send an email, you say, I emailed. The language naturally wants to be simple and just use this ED ending.
That makes a lot of sense. The language wants to be simple. But this raises a very large question. If English wants to be simple and use this friendly rule, why do we have so many words that completely break the rule?
Yes.
I mean, why do we have words that change their spelling completely?
You're talking about the irregular verbs. This is the part of the language that frustrates people the most.
Yeah.
It feels like English is just trying to play a trick on you.
It really does. For example, let's talk about food again. If the verb is eat, the past tense is not eated. If I say I eated a big breakfast, people will know I am still learning the language.
Right, exactly. The word completely changes shape. Eat becomes ate, A-T-E. You say, I ate a big breakfast.
And it is not just food. It happens with travel, too. Like if we use the verb go, we do not say goed. Last summer, I went to a beautiful lake in the mountains. I didn't go, I went.
Or the word see. We definitely do not say seed, we say saw. S-A-W, like I saw a very funny dog at the park.
Eat becomes ate. Go becomes went. See becomes saw. When you are learning the language, this feels incredibly unfair.
I know, it really does.
It just feels random.
Why do these specific words refuse to use the friendly ED rule?
It does feel random, but there is actually a fascinating historical reason for it. These irregular verbs are not trying to be difficult. They're actually the oldest words in the English language. You can think of them as ancient survival words.
Think about human life 1,000 years ago. What did people talk about every single day?
I see where you're going with this.
Right. They talked about eating, they talked about going places, they talked about seeing things. And because people use these specific words thousands and thousands of times every day, the words became like hard stones. They just kept their ancient shapes.
I see. So the words were used so often that they resisted changing. But a newer word like text or email, that one easily accepts the new ED rule because it doesn't have that deep history.
Exactly. The words we use the most are the words that refuse to change. They are stubborn. So words like ate, went, and saw are just echoes from a very long time ago.
Wow, that actually changes how I look at them completely. They aren't mistakes in the language, they're just antiques.
Yes, that's a beautiful way to say it.
But practically speaking, this still leaves the learner with a problem, doesn't it?
Yes. Memorizing a list of 100 irregular verbs is just exhausting. And worse, it usually does not work.
Right.
When you are standing in a coffee shop, trying to tell a story to a friend, your brain will freeze if it has to search through a memorized list.
I have experienced that exact brain freeze. You try to remember line number 42 on the paper, and you just completely lose the flow of the conversation.
Yeah.
So what is the alternative to memorizing lists?
Context and daily life. Because these ancient words are survival words, they are also the most common words in modern life. You will hear them everywhere.
That's true.
You will hear went and ate and saw in movies, in songs, and in normal conversations. If you just focus on the actions you do every single day, you will naturally absorb their shapes without studying them.
So it is about learning the language by living in it step by step instead of treating it like a science experiment.
Exactly. Small steps based on your real life.
Okay, so we have our basic tools now. We have the closed door words with ED, like walked and cooked, and we have our ancient survival words like went and ate. This is enough to tell a basic story. But life is not usually a simple single event.
No, life is definitely complicated.
It is. Usually when we tell a story, several things happen, and we need to put them in order. We need to explain that one event happened before another event. How do we do that without confusing the person listening to us?
To do that, we introduce a new tool. In grammar books, it has a very formal name. It's called the past perfect tense.
Okay, that sounds a bit scary.
It sounds intimidating, but the actual mechanic is surprisingly simple. You just add the word had before the finished action, H-A-D.
Had plus the action. Okay, instead of a rule, let's look at how this works in a real situation. Can you share a story where you needed to use this?
Sure. Let me tell you about a trip I took to the beach a few years ago. I spent all morning packing my car. I drove for 3 hours in heavy traffic, and I finally arrived at my beautiful hotel by the ocean. Now, arrived is our simple past. The driving is finished.
Right. You arrived, the doors closed on the journey.
Exactly. So I walked up to my room and I opened my suitcase to get ready for the water. And in that moment, I realized something terrible.
Or no, what?
I looked in the bag and I saw that I had forgotten my swimsuit at home.
Oh, that is the worst feeling. You were looking right at the ocean, but you had forgotten the one thing you need.
It was very frustrating. I was forced to walk down the street to a small, dusty tourist shop, and I had to buy a bright neon green swimsuit. It was incredibly ugly, but I had no choice.
Well, it is a tragic story for fashion, but a great story for language.
Yeah.
Let's examine the timeline you just built. You said two main things. First, you said, I arrived at the hotel. Then you said, I had forgotten my swimsuit.
Yes. Notice the difference there. I use arrived for one action, but I used had forgotten for the other action.
You didn't just say, I forgot. You added had. Why is that extra word necessary there?
Because, well, the forgetting did not happen at the hotel. The forgetting happened in my bedroom 3 hours earlier before I even started driving. I needed a way to tell the listener that this action belongs deeper in the past.
This reminds me of a technique used in movies. Imagine you were watching a film. The main character walks into a room. Suddenly, the screen gets a little blurry, and the director shows you a scene from 2 days ago.
Oh, I love that comparison.
Using the word had is exactly like that. It is the director's tool to show a flashback. It tells the listener's brain, wait, we are jumping further back in time.
That is a brilliant way to picture it. Had is the flashback word. When you say it, you are pointing the camera backwards to the earliest event in the story. Let me give you another example of this flashback tool. This one is about baking.
Oh, I'm always ready to talk about baked goods. What happened?
Well, it was my sister's birthday, and I wanted to give her a homemade cake. It was a very sweet idea, but the execution was terrible. That afternoon, my boss asked me to finish a huge project, so I worked late. When I finally left the office, I was stressed and I was rushing. I ran from the train station to my house. I finally got home. Now, got is the simple past.
Right, you got home, the camera's on you opening your front door.
Exactly. I opened the door, dropped my bags, and walked straight toward the kitchen to start baking. But when I looked at the kitchen table, I stopped. My husband had bought a beautiful chocolate cake from the local bakery. It was sitting right there in a box.
He had bought a cake.
But let's look at the flashback here. The main story is me opening the door. I got home. But the action of buying the cake happened much earlier in the day.
So you use the flashback word. First, he went to the store and bought the cake. Later, you arrived. So when you tell the story, you say, when I got home, my husband had bought a cake.
Exactly. Had bought creates a clear picture. His action was 100% complete before my action even began. It organizes the chaotic events of life into a neat, understandable timeline. You don't have to explain every single detail. You just use had to jump the camera backward.
Let's test this idea with some everyday frustration. The things that annoy us in daily life are usually great examples of timelines colliding. I will give you a scenario. This is something that happens to people commuting in the city all the time.
Oh, public transportation is full of drama. What is the scenario?
It was a Tuesday morning, and the sky was dark. It started pouring rain. I was already 10 minutes late for work. I ran down the street, jumping over puddles, getting completely soaked by the rain. I finally arrived at the bus stop. Arrived is the simple past.
You arrived at the stop. But, let me guess the end of this tragic story. You looked down the empty street and you realized the bus had left.
Yes. The bus had left. The schedule said 8:05. I got there at 8:07. The bus drove away earlier. So by the time my action happened, the bus's action was already history. The bus had left before I arrived.
The timeline is perfectly clear. It is a terrible morning for you, but your listener understands exactly the sequence of events. Let's try one more scenario, like a quick role play to see how this sounds in a normal conversation. I will set the scene. I am telling you about my weekend.
Okay, I am ready. How was your weekend?
Well, I went to a fantastic jazz club on Saturday night.
A jazz club. I love live music. Did you enjoy the show?
The music was incredible, but the beginning of the night was a complete disaster.
Why? What went wrong?
I took a taxi to the club and I stood in the long line outside. When I wrote the front door, I opened my purse to get my ticket. In that moment, I realized I had left my ticket on my kitchen counter.
You had left your ticket at home. That is so frustrating. What'd you do?
Well, I had to leave the line, find another taxi, and go all the way back across the city. Traffic was awful. By the time I returned to the club, the first band had finished playing.
Oh no. The first band had finished. Did you at least get to see the main performance?
Yes. I finally got inside for the main performance. And end scene, that is our role play.
That felt very natural. And the flashback tool did all the heavy lifting in that story? You said, I arrived at the door.
Yeah.
Then you triggered the flashback. I had left my ticket.
Yes, because leaving the ticket on the counter happened hours earlier. It was the oldest action in the story.
And then you triggered another flashback when you returned. The first band had finished. Their music was completely over before you walked into the room.
The timeline is clean and the listener never gets confused about the order of events.
When you are learning English, you have a lot to think about. You are translating vocabulary in your head, you are worrying about pronunciation, and you are trying to be interesting. What happens if you forget the flashback word? What if you are telling the jazz club story and you just use the simple past for everything? Will the conversation completely fall apart?
That is perhaps the most important question we can discuss today. The fear of making a mistake paralyzes so many people. And the honest truth is this: no, the conversation will not fall apart. Human beings are incredibly smart. We use context to understand each other.
So let's test that. Let's use my rainy bus story. If I am talking to a friend and I make a grammar mistake and I say, when I arrived, the bus left, I didn't use had, what does the listener think?
Well, your friend will listen to your tone of voice. They will see that you are wet from the rain. They know how buses work. Their brain will automatically fix the timeline for you. They will perfectly understand that you missed your bus.
Right. They aren't confused.
Exactly. They will just say, oh no, I'm sorry you had to walk in the rain. They will not pull out a red pen and correct your grammar.
That is a huge relief. So the had tool is wonderful for making things clear, but if you drop it, the listener's logic will catch it. You are talking to a human, not a computer.
Exactly. I want anyone listening to truly believe this. The goal of speaking a language is connection. It is about sharing your human experience. It is not about perfect grammar. Perfection is just an illusion.
Connection over perfection. I think we often forget that when we are studying. We get so focused on the rules that we forget there is a person sitting across from us who just wants to hear our story.
I understand the fear, though. When I first started learning languages, I was terrified of opening my mouth. I stayed quiet at parties. I was convinced that if I messed up a verb tense, everyone in the room would think I was foolish.
It is amazing to hear that because you speak with such clarity and confidence now. It shows that the fear is a phase, not a permanent state.
It is definitely a phase, and I moved past it when I realized that native speakers make mistakes all the time. They start sentences and forget where they're going. They use the wrong words. Language is messy. The moment you accept that making mistakes is just part of the journey, the heavy wall falls down. You are free to just speak.
That is the perfect note to carry forward. We have covered a lot of ground today. We looked at the friendly default tag, the ED ending, that simply closes the door on an action.
We explored the ancient survival words like ate and went and realized we don't need to memorize them, we just need to live with them.
And we discovered the director's flashback tool, using the word had, to safely guide our listeners back in time. These are not just rules in a textbook, they are the tools you use to share your life.
So our advice to you this week is to be bold. Take these tools out into the real world, tell a friend about the interesting place you went last weekend, describe the amazing dinner you cooked yesterday.
Try building a timeline. Tell someone a story about a frustrating moment, like missing a train or forgetting your keys. See how it feels to use the flashback tool. And most importantly, do not let the fear of a small mistake stop you from sharing a great memory. Your stories are worth telling.
They absolutely are. Keep speaking, keep making those small, brave attempts, and you will see how quickly the language becomes your own.
But before you go, ask yourself this. What is one memory you had forgotten until something recently reminded you of it? Think about how you would tell that story in English. Keep that in your mind, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you for listening to the English Echo.
Keep practicing English every day.
Small steps can make a big difference.